Hey everyone. I see a ton of people are rolling in now. We're gonna leave a few more minutes for folks to get settled in, and I'm gonna share my screen. Great. Hello everyone. Oh my gosh, thanks. Great numbers. We're gonna give folks, like I said, a few more seconds to get settled in. Great. Awesome. Hey there, everyone. Okay, as you're joining, I would love to get to know where everyone's calling in from this afternoon, this evening, perhaps it's morning. Hello from Hawaii. Great. Oh my gosh, Arizona, Nigeria. Hello, DC, right in the same backyard as me. Wonderful. Awesome. Connecticut. California. Oh my gosh, hello from Colombia. I'm actually going there this weekend to Colombia for an event with QS. So catch me in Bogota later this week. Nice. North Carolina, Virginia. Hello, everyone. Hello from Baltimore and Toronto. Great. Oh, it's so wonderful to see so many friendly faces and names. Hello from Peru. In India. Oh my gosh. Hello. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I do see that perhaps my screen is maybe overlapping with some of yours. Let me see if I can change my screen to make sure that everyone can see my full screen, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, can I do a quick little test to see if everyone's screen can, one, see my presentation, can hear me clearly, and there's no glitches on the other end. Let me just do a tech check before we dive into some really great stuff. Yeah. Do we see anything? Awesome. Your screen is covered. Awesome. Ooh, okay. So let me see if I can. Okay, let's see how that is going. Is that better? Screen is covered. Ooh. Okay, cool. Okay, it looks like we fixed it. Awesome. Thanks for your patience. I just wanted to make sure we were all set and ready to go before we dive into this evening. Okay, I think what we're gonna end up having is one of these little windows is my webinar chat. So I'll minimize it when possible. And then as I start to answer questions, I'll put it into the chat and into the Q&A box. Wonderful. Okay. So a few house rules for this for the next couple of hours. I'm really excited to get to chat with you. One about the application process, the Georgetown MBA, in addition to an information session about why the Georgetown MBA. And then we'll be joined later in about 15 minutes by some current students and alum of the MBA program. I think we're in for a really great next couple, hour and a half. So that's kind of the agenda for the next couple of, hour and a half or so. I would highly encourage you, if there's a question that comes to mind, don't hesitate. Please put it in the chat. That's going to be really helpful for me to see and follow along to make sure that we can address as many questions as possible this evening. If I'm not able to get to it, I'll stay after the Q&A session with the students to see if I can get through as much as I possibly can if I'm not addressing them in my presentation as we go along. But like I said, don't forget it. If it comes up in your mind, throw it into the webinar chat and I'll follow along as much as we can. Okay, that's wonderful. And then my next reminder is thank you so much for attending and taking time to really commit to yourself and gather this information. The Georgetown McDonough admissions team really recognizes and appreciates your time and preparation to put forward a competitive application. So with that said, we do encourage you to stay for the full duration of this webinar. And as an attendee of this webinar, you will be eligible to receive an application fee reduction code that we will share final details and reminders at the end of this webinar. So stay tuned. And if you're joining in late, I'll send in reminders, and this will be recorded, and we'll be able to get you some information as well. So I'll keep stopping at different points to only remind you to ask questions, and to remind the new folks who jump in and are running late from work or just logging off for the evening and jumping on. I'll send those reminders again. Okay, wonderful. So for this first part, buckle up. We're going to be chatting about some really exciting things, and it's going to start with the application workshop. Before I jump to my next slide, I always like to start this conversation about how to put forward a competitive application with starting an application yourself. I would like to recommend prospective students who are considering applying, it's free to start an application. So my recommendation is jump into the Georgetown MBA application portal, sign up, go through it as you start to really do your research and pull together your different application components. Perhaps you're using this webinar as a place to start planning your your strategy for your application, whether that's, figuring out your test taking timeline, or, how should you start coordinating with your letter recommender, or perhaps even just taking a first crack at drafting those essays. Again, start that application, run through it, make sure you're comfortable and familiar with the platform, see all its fun nuances, and get to know the inner workings of it. That way, as you prepare your application components and you sit down to finally submit that, hopefully at that point, everything will look semi-familiar, and you're not racing to that deadline a little bit less stressed. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to start with the application process and really emphasizing this holistic approach that the Georgetown McDonough admissions team takes. And so what does this mean? The holistic approach can and may sound, very broad and maybe intimidating if you're just starting to consider your MBA. But I'm here to remind you that, ooh, my screen is still, okay. Oh, great, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna minimize that and let me know if that works, and I will check in at different points with the chat. Okay. So, this application process is really approached with a holistic review process with the admissions committee. That means we're really diving into two kind of major sections of your application. We're going to be looking at the quantitative and the qualitative aspects of your application. So I'm going to start off with the quantitative aspects. These are components that you can control to the most part, or perhaps we can provide you with some strategies to go about preparing them in a way that is going to give you the most confidence and put forward a competitive application. Okay, so that's where we're starting with the bottom three: academic history, test scores, and work experience. Academic history. So we recognize that, folks are coming to an MBA program from a variety of different backgrounds and industries and careers / perhaps even majors and minors. And so what that means is the admissions committee puts out, our average benchmarks and scores for not only GPAs, and as we'll get into our test scores, you'll see we'll put out those benchmarks as well. But we really put out this range, right? We do, have that average, GPA and test score, which are those sweet spots, but we recognize that folks are coming from a variety of different institutions, a variety of different quantitative or perhaps non-quantitative backgrounds. And so we really do approach the academic history in a way that's very holistic. And so what I mean by that is when you sit down to prepare your application, what we're going to ask you for is your unofficial transcripts. So unofficial transcripts are transcripts that you immediately pull from your institution and provide to us in your application. Official transcripts won't be, necessary until you receive a letter of admissions from, either Georgetown or perhaps another school. But essentially, official means that it has to basically never get into your hands, but go from institution to institution. So we really need those transcripts, your unofficial transcripts. And then we'll also ask you for your grade scale. So I'm, cautioning you and being very specific on this because the admissions committee and and the folks who represent the admissions committee have been very well trained to go through the trends of your transcripts. We really do go semester by semester, line by line of your classes and, the overall perhaps, cycle of your previous degree, whether that's undergraduate, or perhaps a different master's. And then we really do rely on that grade scale from your institution. So grade scales are usually found on your institution's registrars, either like hand guide, a booklet, or perhaps like on their website somewhere. We only need a screenshot, but we do need a screenshot that includes your university and institution's name on it, so we can ensure that the institution's name matches the grade scale that matches your transcripts. That's really important. I think you should all take a little note of that, because sometimes what happens is when students submit an application on the deadline day, what will happen is they might forget to include that screenshot that includes the name of their institution, and it includes the actual full grade scale, not just the transcript. And when we go through and do our manual audits, we'll likely need to go back to the applicant, and that just kind of slows down the processing. And if you're able to control that, that would be, a really great way for you to minimize the back and forth that might need to happen if you happen to forget that. So really important to remember to do that. I'm also going to pause here and mention that, the test scores or the academic history and your grade scores are something that you cannot necessarily go back and change. And we're humans behind the review and the admissions team. And so what that means is we recognize that, folks are coming in with a variety of different backgrounds, and perhaps, they were juggling multiple jobs. Perhaps there was an extreme, medical situation that they were navigating in their previous degree, or perhaps there was just something else that, maybe does not fully represent to the best of their ability now as a student. And so what we always recommend is using that additional essay to share what you feel comfortable with that can perhaps address maybe some concerns about that previous GPA, and how you have offset it with other points of the application components, which is where we start to pull in those test scores. So, right, perhaps you come from a really strong quantitative background, and you were able to really prove your quantitative abilities for the rigor of this program. I recommend perhaps taking a look into our test waiver. So we do have a very strict test waiver policy, which aligns very much with what we're chatting about right now, right? We're looking at certain GPA thresholds, certain majors and, STEM designated quant backgrounds, or perhaps it can be offset by some professional certificates. So if you take a look on our website, you'll see that we have a very transparent test waiver policy for our full-time and flex applicants. So I encourage you that if you feel that you have a strong quantitative background, please look into that, reach out to our team to see if perhaps, you are considering that if you want to have any specific one-on-one conversations. So I think what you should take away from this part is that your GPA is one part of your application components, and we really do take a deep dive into your trends as a student. How have you been able to either perhaps enhance and improve your abilities as a student? Maybe, and that might be with a test score. So that brings me to my next point of the test scores. Okay, so test scores, to the same point as our GPAs, right? We really put out our range of scores, and we're very transparent with that, because that average test score, that is a sweet spot, right? But that might not represent a variety of different factors that perhaps goes into your preparation. So I really encourage you to understand, if perhaps you have an average GPA, maybe standing out and being more competitive in your test score, whether that's GMAT or GRE, is a really great way to stand out and showcase your quantitative abilities in that case. We don't have a preference on GMAT, whether that's a GMAT Focus Edition, which is the latest version of the test, if you're just looking into the GMAT, or maybe you are considering maybe you have test scores from previous years, the GMAT, I think it's just the GMAT, this is the Focus Edition. So we do still accept those previous test scores. We also are, very open to the GRE or the executive assessment. My recommendation, if you're just starting to consider which test score would be, which test format is, really showcase your ability as an academic student, is to look into a couple of different free platforms or partners that do give you a little bit of a trial run with each test. My recommendation is to do a trial period, like a free, either a full simulation of a test or maybe 1 or 2 questions for each of the different test possibilities, so GMAT, GRE, or EA, to really understand which one you think would be a format that is the best suited for your learning style and your testing style, and 2, which you think you're actually going to rock. The admissions committee wants to see test scores that you are confident in, that you are competitive in, that you are really going to stand out and rock. So I think that's important to know. If you are considering a industry that is still reliant on scores, such as, sometimes it's certain investment banking firms, or sometimes it's top competitive consulting firms, my recommendation is perhaps look into the GMAT. So do a little bit of research if, those ideal recruitment and employers are, very vocal in that they still need certain GMAT test scores, because it'd be really great for you to get those ideal goals now before you graduate your MBA. Okay, I have one more and then I'll pause and take a look at the chat. Okay, so work experience. This is the other aspect of the quantitative approach that we look in our holistic review, right? So with a full-time and part-time MBA, our applicants are really averaging between 5 to 6 years of work experience. Now we put out this range, right? So most of our students either are coming from just over 2 years to up to 8 years. That's not to say that we haven't admitted students with a little bit more of a robust career path where they've exceeded that 8-year mark. What we really want to highlight here, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into it as I chat about your resume, is how is the MBA going to really set you on a strong path for your career goals, right? So your work experience is really going to be quantified in, your career progression, perhaps the different leadership experiences you've taken on, how you've been able to bring measurable impacts to maybe perhaps certain projects, not necessarily teams, perhaps you haven't reached that level. But I think that's what's really important to note in this quantifiable approach with your work experience, is that we're looking for those translatable and tangible skills. And so perhaps your work experience doesn't necessarily align with those post-MBA careers, and we'll dive into those nuances later. But I think what we want to know as an admissions committee is quantifiably, how have you developed the skills that you'll need to really ensure that you can either make that career pivot or, have set yourself on that path for career enhancement. Okay. I'm going to pause here and then take a look at the chat. So I apologize. It looks like my screen's going to be able to show the webinar chat, that little box. Just be patient with me real quick. Okay. So we said, okay, wonderful question. So does taking the GMAT waiver impact the chances of receiving merit-based scholarship or, overall consideration for your competitiveness? So we do, encourage you that if you feel that you meet those test waiver policies, use that to your advantage. It will not hinder you from merit-based scholarship consideration. I'll dive into the merit reviews in a little bit, but if you feel that you are able to competitively showcase your quantitative abilities, whether it's in a professional capacity or perhaps in previous degrees, and you still feel that you stand out as an applicant, then use that test waiver to your advantage. The test waiver, like I mentioned, is a really great opportunity for folks who perhaps cannot go back and change their GPA and feel that they've become a much stronger academic student and are able to showcase their professionalism and their advancement through those test scores. Okay, I do see a question about previous test scores. We do accept test scores for our full-time MBA program within the last 5 years. So that would include the original GMAT. For our part-time MBA, we do accept expired test scores. So a little bit different. For full-time, they have to be current. For flex, take a look at those application components on our website. We do go into those nuances, and flex will accept expired ones. Great. Okay, wonderful. I see a lot of questions about the test waiver. So when I get to that part when I'm starting to ask questions to my current students and I hang out, I will start dropping the links into the chat. Great. Great. I do see a few questions about how the admissions committee really considers either quant courses or just courses in general that are pass fail. I would think that we're looking at it in broader context. If the admissions committee has concerns about your overall performance as a student, and we see a couple of, a handful of classes on any given semester that were considered pass fail, you would probably want to see your quantitative abilities proven in a more relevant manner. If it was one class, the admissions committee is understanding, but we just want to know that on general, you're able to handle the rigor. And so, if it's multiple quantitative courses, that might leave room for the admissions committee to have some hesitation and want some additional evidence. Great. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so I see a few new folks who joined. I'm going to take this reminder before I jump into the qualitative aspects of this program. So if you're joining, thank you so much. If you are an attendee of this event, you are going to be able to receive an application fee reduction code. So I will share specific details at the end of this webinar. If you have to jump off, that's okay. We'll also email you those directions and that information after you've logged off, and we'll send it to all folks who have been attending today. So if you're here, I encourage you to stay on as long as possible. But if you have to jump off, please know we'll also follow up in email. Okay. Great question about on students who are applying as international applicants. We do need to show that the degree and diploma also has the date that the degree was confirmed. And if it matches the transcript, that's great. But sometimes in certain institutions, the conferral date is a different day than on the diploma and the degree than it is on the transcript. So if you're an international student, we still need both. Do not freak out if it's a different date. We have seen those in the past, and it's pretty common, but we just need to prove that for our reporting abilities. Great. Okay, we are moving and cruising. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We have a great crowd. Okay, so the second part of the holistic review approach is really the qualitative aspects. These are the application components that are a little bit more, I would say, in your direct control, and that you are crafting your personal narrative in a couple different ways. Okay, I'm going to start first with our letter of recommendation. We at Georgetown only ask for one recommender, and we really want to focus on the quality of that recommender. So we really encourage you to ask a current supervisor who has really overseen your career progression. We want them to be able to speak on behalf of very nuanced details to your career progression, your measurable impact, again, those translatable skills that you're bringing into a team, regardless of whether that's in an industry-specific team or, perhaps a classroom setting. We do not encourage you to ask a previous professor. If that is the case, we encourage you to find perhaps somebody else in that way. Another recommendation, a lot of students who are considering the MBA program perhaps come from an entrepreneurship background, and that's wonderful. And we really do celebrate that here at Georgetown McDonough. So our recommendation is perhaps do not, if you're in business for yourself, perhaps that's, a client or a vendor that you've worked on more of a partnership status with, somebody who's a little bit more unbiased and can provide that review and again, those nuanced details of what it's like to work on a team with you. To that point, if you're within a family business, I have to say it, please find somebody else besides a family member. That is definitely discouraged for sure. But we do absolutely value and celebrate entrepreneurs. So if you have any questions about perhaps, who you think would be a better recommender, feel free to reach out to our admissions team. We can give you some guidance on that one. I always like to make a really strong suggestion in that before you reach out to before you ask your recommender to provide you with our form, sit down and chat with them and make sure they understand, why an MBA is really going to be a strong asset into your career, and what are you including on your resume, or not, well, one, on your resume, but two, within the rest of your application, because the recommender is a really great way to round out everything that we have seen you put forward as your strongest and perhaps proudest work, and perhaps that essay I'm going to chat about in a little bit, and what you've note on your resume. But that letter of recommender is a really great way to really emphasize perhaps any areas that really can tie the narrative together, and or showcase these were really standout projects and points you made in your application, and continue to be worth supporting and proving why these are strong contributions to a classroom in the MBA program. Okay. Oh, one more thing before I forget, because we always get asked this, is to my earlier point about starting the application, jump into the application portal, scroll all the way down into the letter of recommender section, and add in your recommender's email. Please make sure that it's their personal email, because sometimes businesses do flag our code, like our form that gets sent to them, and in order for it to not get swept up in all the spam bots and your company's firewall, it's really encouraged that you use your recommender's personal email, or at least an email where they don't consistently have any issues with, because that will prevent them from reaching out to you, to reach out to us, to reach out to them. So it prevents a whole loop and gives you a little bit more peace of mind. And that reminds me to always tell your recommender that you're applying earlier than you intend to. That way their recommendation is in our system and they have it, and then we're not tracking you down after the deadline's passed. We do that audit, right, to ensure that we have all your different application components. And one of that is to include a check that your recommender actually submitted your application, because that's not something that you can necessarily see, but gives a lot of folks some anxiety. So make sure you tell them a little bit earlier before that deadline, so that they got it in on time. Okay, personal essays. So this is not a trick question. We do provide you with 3 prompts. Our full prompts are noted on our application components page in the website. And they're also in the application portal itself. But essentially the 3 themes that we're really trying to test and get to know you about is either around the Georgetown community contributions, your commitment and focus on Cura Personalis. So pause on that right now, right? So what is Cura Personalis? I'm going to dive a little bit into that buzzword in a little bit in our information session, but just take away from this part of the conversation knowing that it's care for the whole person, and it is Latin and part of our ideals as a Jesuit institution. And then this idea of achieving excellence, so whether that's in a personal capacity or a professional capacity. So please only pick one prompt. Like I said, we give you 3 options. Please pick one that speaks the strongest to you and how you believe you can put forward a really strong competitive narrative. And then it's rounded out by our required video essay. So it's supposed to be 60 seconds or less. So aim for that 60 seconds. And our prompt again this year is, please share with us a simple pleasure or hobby, something that's fun that you do outside of your 9-to-5 that has recently brought you joy. It's not meant to be a major production. We simply want to be able to hear you, to be able to have really strong lighting, to make sure that you're business casually dressed, right? Dressed appropriately for what you're chatting about. So it's not meant to be a huge production. So pretend you're pulling up a Zoom a meeting and record yourself in that way. And then keep it to that 60-second mark. Yeah. That's actually one of my favorite parts of the application, because I get to multiple committee members, because multiple eyes will review your final package, really get to know you. Okay, that resume. So coming back to this point, right, we just mentioned that in the quantitative aspect, but here in the qualitative, right, we want to make sure that should there have been any gaps in your employment, or perhaps you decided to take a very drastic industry pivot already, that you please explain that in your optional essay. We understand life happens. We have all been impacted to some capacity, whether like it was a couple of years ago with COVID and all those industry shakeups, or in the past couple of years with the most recent industry shakeups, perhaps in tech. So we understand that. We just want to make sure that you address it in your narrative, and that you're upfront with perhaps any professional development opportunities you might have taken advantage of in that period between full-time employment opportunities. It's understandable, and again, we have seen this, obviously, and it's what the MBA is a wonderful resource to help with, but please just use that in your own words, and don't leave the admissions committee necessarily with questions. Okay, so once you have pulled together your packaged qualitative application components, you submit it, we go through our audit, you may be invited to interview. So I'm gonna jump to my next slide, but essentially this interview process is by invitation only. So everybody who's been admitted will have interviewed, but not everybody who gets interviewed is admitted. So just because you've been invited to interview does not guarantee an admittance. We usually share the period when we'll start to roll out interview invites. So we might put that on the application components page. But usually it takes us, after the deadline on any given round, a couple of weeks to start the processing and start to roll out those invites. I say that because you can actually be extended an invitation to interview all the way up until the decision release day. I know it sounds crazy, but it has absolutely happened. And so whether you're extended the invitation to interview at any point in that period is no indication of where you fall within our necessarily our preferences for admittance. It's just simply, how these things roll out from a process standpoint. Okay. So what does this mean? I'm going to take a big step back, right? Because we mentioned a lot of benchmarks and how do you put together a competitive application component or components. I want to show you that the incoming class, so the students who just stepped into their first day of classes this afternoon or this morning today, are really represented by this graphic. So we have 40 countries, different countries represented within our full-time class. We have a class size of 248. And we do post those ranges for the GREs. I think what's really exciting to highlight here is that we really are a global community, and it's really well represented, not only by the countries that you will have, as classmates in the different conversations you'll have, but also the different industries and previous industries and fields of studies that our folks are coming from. For our Flex MBA class, I really like to highlight here, about 49% of our incoming class self-identify as women, and that's really wonderful. And I think that's worth calling out as if you're considering an MBA as a woman, and knowing that, whether you're full-time or flex, that eventually you'll also take classes with each other in electives, and that's a really wonderful thing to also know. And then I like to highlight our Flex MBA online class. I like to really highlight that we have 10 different countries represented on our online class. Now, our online class, they're either within plus or minus 3 hours Eastern time zone. And so, that's where they currently are. But, to be able to have such a robust and global community within the online program really identifies, Georgetown really does walk the walk and talk the talk with a global community. Yeah, okay. Great. So I'm going to pause here for a quick second. Program finances. We understand this is a huge commitment and investment in yourself, and we'll dive into what that looks like and means in why a Georgetown MBA. But I think what it means in terms of this application workshop section of our conversation is that when we say merit-based scholarships, we award merit-based scholarships, right? We're looking at those benchmarks from that incoming class as really our guide for what it was to have a competitive class. And so, if you are deemed a competitive applicant, I think it's worth noting that, we share the percentage of incoming fall students who did receive a merit-based scholarship, and we do share that average amount. What's really unique is not all MBA programs who have part-time formats offer merit-based scholarships, and I think that's really a really cool thing to note about the Georgetown MBA is that we do find and commit to supporting our part-time students in addition to our full-time students. And I want to highlight one really incredible, merit-based scholarship in a little bit. So stay tuned. And when you hear about the Dean's Fellow, poke your ears back up. Okay, so this is that slide, right? So after you've submitted all your documentation, what happens is you could be extended that invitation to interview, correct? So multiple sets of eyes receive and go through your application. So it's not just always one person. Okay, so our first application deadline, which I believe a lot of you may be considering since you're joining today, or perhaps round one is on your mind, and that's honestly just right around the corner as well. So what does it mean to apply in early action? Early action is a binding commitment, whether you're for the full-time or one of our part-time programs. This is signaling that, Georgetown McDonough really is one of your first choices. And, that's really ready to commit to our program. And I think that's a really great way if you're a reapplicant or you want to signal that there's not going to be a hesitation to your final decision. Preparing a competitive application for early action is a great way to do it. So this Dean's Fellowship is a merit-based scholarship that is awarded to full-time MBAs who apply in early action. If you've been awarded a Dean's Fellowship, you have some really great and wonderful opportunities, such as, you're part of a very select group. Not only will you receive some merit-based scholarship financial support, you'll also receive, and that comes in a minimum scholarship award of $25,000 per year. You'll also receive additional networking and academic benefits, such as some networking opportunities with the McDonough Career Center that is exclusive for the Dean's Fellows. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that if you're ready to make that binding commitment and the Dean's Fellowship is enticing and you would like to be considered. Great. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this screen before I jump into my next section of the conversation. I want to just double check our webinar chats. This is wonderful. Okay. Great. I think I've addressed many of these questions, at least for the sake of time. I'm going to keep cruising along because we do have some current students and alums joining us. So I'll come back to these as well. Wonderful. Okay. Jumping into why an MBA from Georgetown. I could do a whole nother hour on this, but I'm really excited to share some of the top lines before our students come on for that chat. So I think what you saw from those class profile benchmarks is that Georgetown McDonough really is a global community. Not only do we have, about 52 different countries represented between all three programs, right? Those are different countries within the McDonough, building at any given time. We really do encourage and support global learning. And so what that looks like is actually traveling with your global business experience. And that is a required course. It's a hands-on consulting project that you'll do that will be a semester long and then require a week-long immersion trip essentially to meet with those project partners that you have been coordinating with while based in DC. All of our MBA programs participate in it, and actually all of our McDonough master's programs also take part of this in some capacity. Access to Washington, D.C. I think what is really great to know is that there are a plethora and variety of industries here based in the Washington and DMV area, right? We have Amazon HQ2 right over the river in Arlington. We're home to, we see Deloitte right outside of our window. We have Marriott right up the street in Bethesda. We have a really wonderful and supportive entrepreneurship community, and our entrepreneurship center is really renowned in that. And so I think being able to get up and down the East Coast, to New York and Boston and to Atlanta on any given moment, whether that's, to prepare for possibly an internship interview or a full-time job interview, that is unparalleled access that, you can pop in anywhere pretty quickly, and also have these really renowned employers in your own backyard. Principal leadership. I'm really proud that, Georgetown McDonough really is top notch when it comes to ethical and principal leadership decision making. And that really starts in the foundation of your MBA curriculum. One of the first courses you'll actually take is a leading team and performance for impact, or maybe perhaps it's going to be one of your opening term classes. But there's this underlying emphasis on ethics, such as through your ethics project, where actually, whether you're part-time or full-time, you'll be put into groups of teams, and actually during your ethical leadership class, be given about $1,000 to go out and make some sort of community impact, and report back on the implications and perhaps the highs and lows of what that entailed. And ultimately, at what point did you have to make ethical decisions in order to really execute for the common good? So I think that's really wonderful that you get to do that and tangibly see an impact, and also to be given that for either your local community or whatever organization that you choose to do. Okay, I'm cruising. All right, this is home. This is the Hariri building right here in the middle of the screen with all that wonderful glass and stone. It is really a stunning building. It is in the center of our Hilltop campus. And from it, we can actually see the Washington Monument. So that's your screen on your left. Okay. We offer 3 different formats for our MBA program. We offer a full-time, a flex, which is our part-time program in person, or our flex part-time MBA online. I think what's important to note is that these are all 54 credits. Where the part-time status is important is that you have a little bit of flexibility based on your priorities and your academic obligations to complete it in about just over 2.5 years, up to 5 years. A lot of our MBA, part-time MBAs do complete it on that 3-year track. The full-time MBAs, your core curriculum. So we're actually excited to start chatting about this new curriculum that we're going to be rolling out for this coming fall. So we've started to have conversations with applicants and start to post it on our website. But I'm also here to, start to sprinkle this idea that, the curriculum on any given, 8-year track is reviewed to make sure that we're staying consistent with industry trends, and to make sure that we're listening to our alumni about, what is it that our MBAs need to continue to stay sharp on, and really this is a continuation and building on what we already prepare our students. But what our curriculum is now adjusting to is that it's going to be about 45% of your curriculum will be about core, and then we're going to be increasing that to be about 55% elective. So we're giving you a little bit more opportunity to have personalization in your curriculum. And we're really going to be baking in that AI and data literacy earlier on in your core courses. So, a lot of our professors are staying, up to date and on top of those trends, but this is just the solidifying of it into your actual curriculum. Great. So I mentioned this a little bit a couple slides ago, our global business experience. Our global business experience, like I said, can take you from Brazil to the UAE, all the way to Germany, to Spain, perhaps to China. They were just in Hong Kong this past summer. So it really does give you the opportunity to take advantage of being in a real world consulting project and then actually go and travel. So I think that's really wonderful. If you ever get a chance to chat with one of our current MBA students one-on-one, ask them about their GBE. Everyone loves to chat about it, and check out our Instagram because there's always some really cool coverage, whether that's, live while they go for our full-times during spring break, or for our part-time students, usually in July. There's always some really cool coverage, or you can go back and check out some great stories. Yeah. So what it means to be a Georgetown McDonough graduate is that you're now entering the Georgetown network. So we are all over the world across 189 countries. We have just almost 10,000 McDonough MBA alumni, which is really phenomenal. And then within the Georgetown McDonough network itself, we have, just nearly 30,000. So that's a really wonderful thing to know, that as part of the business school, that's the alumni network and connection that you're entering. Here at Georgetown, as a Jesuit university, we are very much committed to our community and diversity. These are some really phenomenal partners that we work closely with to help our MBA applicants through the application journey. If you haven't already done your research and applied to these or have checked out these partners, I highly recommend you do it. They offer perhaps sometimes application workshops, interview preparation scenario simulations, and perhaps even get you on track with some pre-MBA internship opportunities. So highly encourage you to reach out and check out these networks. If you're considering an MBA in addition to another degree, I'm actually really thrilled that one of our current students who are joining our chat in a little bit, Delaney, she's actually one of our dual degree students, and can happily, chat more with you about this. But what this means is that you are essentially also applying to the full-time MBA and then applying to perhaps one of these other 4 degree programs that we have a dual degree option with. If you have more questions about the dual degree process, feel free to give us a chat, either on email or I'll drop in our direct messaging platform, and you'll get a little bit more understanding of that. There is an opportunity to study abroad if you're looking for that more traditional 3-month track, or like that 3-month experience. And these are the different, global institutions that we have great and strong partnerships with, and have maybe perhaps a handful of students on any given year studying there as well in their fall semester of their second year. And then in Georgetown McDonough, we have so many centers and initiatives that are constantly cranking out, cutting edge research, pushing the boundaries in some really phenomenal industries, such as the Steers Global Real Estate Center, or the Georgetown Entrepreneurship Club, and even the Bassaro Center for Financial Markets and Policies. This is a snapshot of what our full-time MBA new curriculum will look like. So as I mentioned, you'll still have the nuts and bolts of our current curriculum, right? It's 2-year track. What you'll see is just that there'll be a little less core, a little bit more electives, and the ordering of those cores will be announced in a little bit. So essentially, it's the exact same core, I would say, like nuts and bolts. And this is the new Flex MBA curriculum, right? So again, that nuts and bolts is essentially the same thing. This is taking a look at a 3-year track. You'll still be having an opening term, and you'll still be having leadership communication skills, and as well as having a little bit more options in those electives. Great. Okay. So I'm going to play my next video. This is actually a really great overview from our McDonough Career Center. As I play this video, I'm going to go through our chat, make sure I can answer as many questions that I can see, and let my current students join who are going to be our speakers. So Thank you for your patience. I'm going to try to keep my screen to the right so you can see most of the video and as I get through questions. Okay.
Hoya Saxa, my name is Laura Venice, and I am the Senior Director of Career Curricula and Communications at the McDonough Career Center. I'm very excited to present to you today. We're going to be speaking about how the McDonough Career Center partners with our MBA students. We start by making sure all students have summer career curricula and onboarding, meaning before your program even starts, you will have the foundations you need to be successful. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about our industry and function expertise and how we provide career coaching and make sure all students are supported in their own custom job search framework. So the summer start, and this is something I'm very excited to discuss with you today because we think it's a real advantage to hit the ground running when your program starts. We have an asynchronous summer career course for all MBAs, full-time MBAs, flexible MBAs, flexible online MBAs. When you start your program in the fall, you will already have an employer-ready resume. For our full-time MBAs, you will also have the opportunity to have your first coaching appointment even before orientation. And for our flexible and flexible online MBAs, you will have a resume reviewed via email. Our personalized job search framework includes a career portfolio, ensuring all students have a solid resume, cover letter, outreach messages so that you're confident in looking for that internship or new full-time job. We have industry, function, and geography targets, so we help all students ensure that they have a plan moving forward so that you're quite strategic in how you're looking for opportunities that are a good fit for your goals. We also help ensure you have a target company list, access to employers, and really solid networking tools. In addition to, of course, LinkedIn, we have Hoya Gateway, which helps you connect with alumni. Our coaching team is aligned with industries and functions. What that means is each member of our team not only works directly with students to provide custom career coaching, but they also have constant conversations with our employers. So they're learning exactly what is needed in the marketplace, what the employers are looking for, so that they can provide the most up-to-date advice and information and contacts to our students. This is a hybrid model where our coaches are not only providing coaching, but they're also the ones in touch with our employers. Here's some data for you. We know as future MBAs, you love data. Our most recent data comes from the academic year 23 to 24, where we hosted 373 employer events, 354 on-campus interviews, over 2,000 internship and job postings, and we held over 6,000 coaching appointments. So we have a small but very mighty team that is here to meet you in your needs, whether you're a full-time MBA looking for that summer internship, or whether you're in a flexible program thinking about maybe an internal promotion or looking for a new role as you near the end of your 3-year program. In terms of outcomes, here's some outcomes from the class of 2025 who enjoyed summer internships. We're currently collecting information for the class of 2026. You'll see their average monthly salary here and the industries represented: financial services, consulting, and social impact were our 3 highest industries represented for our summer internships for our full-time MBA class of 2025. And the full-time outcomes of the class of 2024, again, we're collecting information currently for our class of 2025. You'll see the average full-time salary, median salary, average signing bonus here. Consulting, financial services were far away the 2 highest industries that our Georgetown full-time MBAs enjoyed, followed with a 3-way tie of consumer packaged goods, manufacturing, and technology. And I'll leave you with this last slide where I'll X out my camera here so that you can see our lovely alumni. What I want you to see on the slide are the possibilities. Our students go on to be successful in the fields that they are targeting. Sometimes that is a shift in industry. For example, Joey here went from being in the U.S. Army to an internship at Kaiser Associates to a full-time post-MBA job at McKinsey. You'll see Andrea here, who had an employer during the MBA of EAB and Compass, and she moved on to Capital One after her flexible program. The possibilities are endless. What we at the Career Center help you do is figure out what your goals are and help you come up with a plan to strategically achieve those goals. So we hope this presentation was really helpful for you. We hope you see the possibilities in yourself. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be on this slide for future potential MBA students at the Georgetown McDonough School of Business.
Wonderful. Okay, so I got through a lot of questions, but I'll get to more. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen for a second to make sure I can see my current students. Wonderful. Hello, folks. Hey, Delaney. Hey, Amelia. Hey, Michael. I'm gonna give you a second to unhide. Hey, Amelia. Oh, okay. Hey, Delaney. Michael, it's so good to see you. Welcome back. You
Hey,
weren't gone for too
Madison.
long.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Amelia. Hey, Delaney.
I think Amelia is just helping out some tech issues. So
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll be on camera in a second. I'm so sorry.
no, you're good. No. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We have a really solid crowd. I'm seeing some really great, thoughtful questions. We'll start this panel with our typical normal introductions, and I'll go through some questions I have prepared. And then if it's all right by the three of you, I'll take some questions from the chat, just so I'm making sure that we're addressing what's on everyone's mind tonight. Awesome. Okay, with that, why don't I turn over to you guys to do a little bit of an introduction of yourselves. I'm going to see if I can keep working on some back end things. So if you can give your a little bit of an introduction of, what brought you to Georgetown, what was your previous industry, what year are you now, or what year did you graduate? And maybe perhaps those career goals. Does that work? Awesome.
I'm happy to go. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Iboye. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria, and I moved to DC to Georgetown about a year ago. Before the MBA, I was working in telecoms and corporate strategy. I wanted to come get an MBA, specifically at Georgetown, because it's such a global and diverse class, and it's located in Washington, D.C., which, to be honest, just on that alone, there's no other school that beats it. Washington, D.C. is a great city. I love living here. And I wanted to be connected to um, classmates that were from different, countries and different backgrounds, and I get all of that at Georgetown. Um, so I came into Georgetown wanting to recruit for consulting full time. This past summer, I spent it at EY Parthenon, where I was a summer consultant, and I'm looking to return into consulting full-time post MBA. Over to you, Amelia.
Sure, I'll go. So hi, I'm Amelia Paul. I'm originally from Tucson, Arizona. Since living in Tucson, I have lived in Phoenix. I moved to New York, I moved to Boston, and then I ended up in DC, so I've been making my way around. Prior to starting my MBA, I was working in healthcare immediately after graduation. I was pre-med at the time. I decided to make the switch into tech. So for a few years, I was working in tech at a private equity firm. And then coming to Georgetown, I decided I want to pursue the consulting industry as well. And so over the summer, I ended up doing a consulting internship with a nonprofit. And yeah, I think for me, coming to the DC area was partly about location and partly about the community feel. So I really liked when I came to do my interview, I liked how small knit the community was, and I appreciated that aspect of it. So I'll pass it to Delaney.
All right. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Delaney Brower. I am originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I am an MPP MBA here at Georgetown. So I'm doing a dual degree, one that's offered. So I started at Georgetown in the fall of 2023, started over at McCourt, but have been at the business school for the past year and will complete my time at Georgetown with both the business school and the public policy school. I originally, my career started in market research and data analytics, and I decided to go back to school to pivot into social impact and sustainability, specifically at that intersection of the private and public sector within climate change policy, environmental policy. The biggest thing that really stood out to me about wanting to come to Georgetown was first its location. It's kind of the perfect place to be studying public policy at a time like this, and it's incredible community there at any time. Where when I was in the process of looking at schools and different programs, I talked to a lot of prospective students, which I highly recommend doing just to kind of get the feel for the campus and the school. And everybody that I had talked with had talked about how incredible the community is. It's very supportive, collaborative, tight knit, and so that was something that I was looking for, and have found that that has all been true since being at MSB. So looking forward to talking with you.
Thanks, Delaney. Oh, welcome, Paula.
Hey everyone, sorry for the delay. Yes, my name is Falahon Akemi, but everyone here on campus calls me Fola. I am actually a DMV native, so I grew up in Virginia. But I have been in the DC area for pretty much my whole life, but lived in DC proper for the last few years. So when I was looking to go get my MBA, I love DC, no shame at all. So I wanted to go to the best school in the area, and Georgetown was that for me. But besides location, Delaney mentioned it as well, that the community, when I was looking through uh, MBA schools, I knew I wanted to be in a city. DC was definitely preferred, but there was something about like when I was looking, everyone was just focused on like the outcomes and that's it. But Georgetown was one of the first ones that were like, it's not just about like doing good for yourself, but doing well for the entire community and globally. And that really resonated with me. So that's when I decided that Georgetown was definitely the right fit for me. What I've done, I'm a CPA, so I did public accounting for 6 years, and I came to business school to pivot. I have my own accounting business that I want to grow, so I'm very interested in entrepreneurship and VC. So during my time, I've kind of immersed myself in those arenas. Most recently, my internship was a venture fellows program, so I got to join a VC. Really, really fun time. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all your introductions. You guys have accomplished so much. I don't know how you guys have enough hours in the day to have taken advantage of all those wonderful opportunities. My first question is, this transition to being a full-time worker to being a full-time student comes with its own set of challenges. If you can believe it, this time last year, or perhaps, just only 2 years ago, you were once in these prospective students', shoes. What can you recommend in their application preparation journey, or perhaps, that summer right before their MBA that would get them into a best position to hit the ground running?
I think it's never too early to start. I think the deadlines come up pretty quickly. I know round one's coming up soon, and I think if you are still thinking of taking your test, that can add to the time. So if you're considering this year, it's never too early. And also just doing the research of kind of what I think Delaney was mentioning in her or intro or like just getting into like understanding the student perspective is really important. I think during my journey, I didn't realize that was something you could easily do, like just looking on the website and connecting with someone and kind of getting to, because it's a mutual, like you want the school, but the school also wants you. So I think keeping that in mind when doing your search.
Yeah, and I think to jump on that as well, yeah, highly recommend talking with students. I think they're going to be some of your best resources. I also think, chipping away little by little is really important just because it's a process. Applications are a process, and you should not rush them. You can't rush them. It's pretty impossible to do that. But I think just in terms of thinking about your personal application and, kind of why you want to go to business school, I think it's really important to be authentic, to think through like what it is you're looking to get out of going to grad school. It's a very intentional process, and I think the more authentic you can be to yourself and think through those goals of yours, and being intentional about conveying those in your application will do you really well, and also help you, I think, in the long run, just think about, what you want your experience to be like. I highly recommend spending some time, whether it's for your application or just for your own personal thought process of understanding, what you're looking to get out of a graduate program. I think it would be really beneficial.
To
Yeah, and
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Mike.
Fola.
Okay, to build on what Delaney is saying, I wanted to just say that, like, I think that what she's saying is basically can be wrapped up into one word: vision. I think if you can envision what your time will be here in your MBA program, both during and after, I think that really helps. And if you can convey that into your application during the written section or anything, that's super helpful because it shows that authenticity. And it's a very personal thing and I think that's what schools want. They want to get to know you. So being able to put that vision into paper is really helpful.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, and I completely agree with Delaney and Fola about having a vision, understanding exactly why you're coming to get that MBA or that dual degree. That's really important. At the same time, like I'd add that you should be flexible. It's like have a vision and know exactly what it is you want to come to do here. But guess what? Georgetown has like so many opportunities and so many resources, and understand that right now as you're thinking about what that vision is for you, it's based on where you are today. But when you come into the MBA programs, like no one's going to hold you to like what you've written down in your essay or anything like that. And I would recommend like at the same time trying to have the mindset that when you do come in, you want to like really lean into all the resources that are available here at Georgetown to help you then chart what will eventually become your path. And it may look exactly like what you envisioned before you came here, or it may be completely different. Before I came to business school, I didn't think I'd be super interested in like sustainability issues, but right now I'm getting a certificate in sustainable business because I found those classes like super interesting, and potentially will try to focus my search in consulting to be at a firm where sustainability is one of the big things that they're doing. So just wanted to add that color to it.
Thank you. And this kind of builds on that question and many different themes that you touched on, all in different ways. Can you share about how perhaps Georgetown McDonough, and specifically maybe with the MBA program, really helps you build community, and the different ways you have found not only your lifelong friends, but those colleagues you're going to call up in 20 years from now when you're all being really incredible leaders continuing your career.
I think being involved is really how I found my community. And that can be in different aspects. It's not just in class, that like, for example, my wife bakes cookies and I bring them to class. So everyone knows my name just because of that, right? Something as simple as that. But also
We
like
had some today.
Yeah, he did bring some for the first day of class.
yeah. But also just like the leadership positions that I'm in, like being in SGA, I've made 12 people or 14 people that I know I can rely on when, the going gets tough. But then, there's the extracurriculars. I'm part of consortium, so there's all those networks. So I think being involved is really how you build that community. Because there's a lot of amazing people here, but you just have to show up and meet them, right? So I think that's I would say, the most important thing.
Oh, God.
Go for it, Emily.
I was just gonna say, like, there's so many places to like find your groups. Like within your cohort, there's so many. Like Paula mentioned, both of us are in the consortium, so we've gotten closer through that. I work a lot with Michael because we're both on the board for GCC, and like Delaney, we're all like student ambassadors, so we get to work a lot together. So there's just so many like so many things that like when you join, you get to connect with new people and you get to form new relationships. And I think that's really valuable. And I kind of wanted just to add it to Bola's point on that.
I think also what's really beneficial about the way that the curriculum's set up and the entire MBA program is that there are ways in which you can like seek out leadership positions and build community that way, but it's also like naturally embedded into the entire experience. So you're in a cohort from the very beginning. You take all your core classes with that cohort. Within that cohort, you have a study team that you're with. And so there are so many ways in which you can kind of invest in that community and invest in like getting to know the people around you, your colleagues. And then I think also just to the point of what Fola said and Amelia said is about getting involved. I think the way I think of grad school is like you'll get out a lot, you'll get out as much as you put in with certain things. And I think if you're going into the MBA program with an open mind, wanting to kind of reap the benefits of the entire, experience, getting involved is such a great way to do so. And it can be as something as big as like taking on a leadership position or something, not as flashy, if you would, as like, volunteering for an event or, helping out with, helping out a study group with, an assignment or something. So a lot of different ways, both naturally and organically and a little bit more intentional to get involved and kind of build that community.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about building community like outside of the McDonough building, right? As MBA students, like we are all at the McDonough school. It's one building on campus. We spend most of our days and sometimes nights in that building. And so there's a tendency to not like connect with the broader Georgetown community. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities to be able to do that as well. It's like there are opportunities for you to like serve and get involved and show up on like Georgetown, initiatives and clubs, but like outside of Georgetown as well. There's like the Grad Gov, where right now I serve on the board of the Grad Gov for 2025. And that way you get to connect with like students like Delaney who are not in a dual program, but at the policy school, also at the law school. Just before this event, I was attending like a welcome to campus event on the Capitol Hill campus, where I was meeting like African students from the law school and the policy school and things like that. So just wanted to share that beyond like the community that you build in class and within the McDonough area, like there's an opportunity for you to also strengthen and build community across and the entire Georgetown University.
Can I even take that one further? Because I was gonna say DC is an amazing city just to be in. And if you want community, just you hate all of us. You're not going to. But like if you want to go beyond Georgetown and beyond McDonough, just DC has plenty of free events, plenty of people of all ages, of all different backgrounds. It's a really diverse area that you can find your people for sure. You just have to look for them. I'm sure if you just Google it, you can find someone that likes biking at midnight or likes to run at 3 p.m. Whatever you're interested in, or movies or whatever, you can find those all here. So definitely just explore the city as well.
I agree. I feel like I could do another whole like webinar just on why I love DC. And usually I volunteer to take that one for the students who are looking to move, later in the cycle. So that's always exciting. My next question is actually, I'm going to start to field some from the Q&A box, but this actually comes from Rodrigo. And he asked, what makes McDonough's culture so unique and what type of students actually thrive here the most?
I think one of the unique things I'd already mentioned, but just the smaller class size and the more community class size, I think that was a priority when I was considering MBA, just because I went to the University of Arizona, and for me at the time, like it's such a huge school and it was so easy to get lost. And so I think with my MBA experience, I really wanted like somewhere that I felt like I can thrive in a smaller classroom and all of that. So I think for me that was like a big priority, and that's why I really kind of like found myself drifting towards schools like McDonough that had that emphasis on community one. Like I feel like everywhere you like look on our website, they really push community. And so that was something that was like super valuable for me.
I think also to build on that is like the experiential, like building community isn't just within McDonough. There's been multiple opportunities that we get to build a community. Last year I did like a consulting project for a nonprofit firm where it was a month of volunteerism. We just gave them our time and helped them that. But then there's also like more institutionalized programs like Small Business Corps, where the MBAs and students partner with local businesses to give them, help on, I think it's like a 12-week project where you consult with them and you actually give them a tangible thing at the end of the 12 weeks for them to use and move on. And it's free to the business. So it's not even, they all they have to do is meet with you and then you take care of everything else. So stuff like that. But being involved throughout, we have the Volunteers Club as well, where we just focus on giving back. So I think it's also just about being experiential. And it's not just like words. They're not just Jesuit values, but they're actually go a little bit further and they're shown in practice. So I appreciate that. We all get to start the ethics project. That's really going to be fun soon. So, and for those that don't know, the ethics project is the school gives groups of 6 to 8 $1,500, and they just say go do good in the world, and that's it. And so we'll figure out how that works over these next few weeks. But I love that actual real world experience because I think that's where a lot of learning can be done.
Yeah, I wanted to share about like there's a part of the question that says like what kind of student thrives at Georgetown. And I think the word that comes to mind in answering that question is people who are collaborative, right? Like there's hardly anything that you're gonna do in any single class that you're gonna take, or even in involvement outside of class that you would be doing it alone. So if you're kind of like a lone person, like you don't like to work in a team, you just like to, do things by yourself and compete with everyone else, like Georgetown's probably not the place for that. And so it's a very collaborative kind of community, very collaborative environment. You'll be working in teams a lot, and sometimes you'd even get graded not based on your own work and the output that you give, but based on how well you work with others on your team to deliver on the project. And that's kind of like how the real world is like. It's like no one gets, rewarded in the real world of work for just the things that they've accomplished, but it's for the things that they are able to galvanize, like sometimes thousands of other people to accomplish together. And so that's what I would say about the kind of person who thrive here.
Yeah, and pulling on that a little bit, and something that Fulla mentioned that I think is really important about just like the whole Georgetown experience is there are a lot of values from the just like Georgetown University itself that find its way into McDonough, into all of these different grad schools and grad programs. And you see it, in everyday classes, you see it in the curriculum, you see it in the way in which like you're interacting with students. Something as simple as like a professor, our finance professor last year would end his class saying like, be kind to others and yourself, or yourself and others, and every single class like that. And it just kind of brings like a human aspect to like learning about something like finance, which can be tough for, it was tough for me, and it's kind of a tough subject, and just kind of reminding you that like this is just one class compared to everything you're going to learn. And the collaborativeness is huge. I mean, I think that one thing that I've found so helpful is just how willing people are, how willing and able people are to help and support you when you need it. Whether it's prepping for an interview, whether it's understanding a balance sheet for accounting, whether it's, practicing a speech for a leadership communications class, everybody is really willing to help because your success is the whole team's success. And so it's just this really great collaborative group effort in the long run. And it's special to be a part of.
I can't believe like today is the first day of classes, and you might probably have conversations with maybe the different groups that you're all kind of involved in, but I would love for you to share, if it's okay, what are you looking forward to the most, this upcoming school year as, rising second years MBAs. 2 years goes by so quickly. So I would love to know like what's on your mind for the second half of your MBA. What are you excited for? And just keep in mind that like, oh my gosh, 2 years is crazy.
Because we're probably all going to say the same thing. I wanted to be the first to say it. I'm looking forward to GBE. It's like that's probably going to be the answer that everyone provides. But definitely really looking forward to GBE. In one of the classes we had today, even the professors are excited about it because they get to travel with the students on GBE. I was in the economics of strategic behavior class this morning, and Arthur Dong is the professor of other class, was talking about how he wants to start a new trip to, I think it was Thailand. And he says it's going to change our lives if we go there. So hopefully that one starts when you guys join. But definitely looking forward to GB. I want to go somewhere in Asia. I've never been. So excited for that.
Uh, All right, Michael is right. I was gonna say GB. But honestly, I'm looking forward just to like Madison, like you said, this is such a quick 2 years. And your first year, you're kind of figuring everything out. Like you're like, what am I doing? What do I want to do? What's next for me? Like, what's my community? And your second year, you really kind of have a lot of those things in place. So really just being with this community, like I genuinely have loved coming to class. Like I'm both really excited to be in class, but also really sad that it is our last year. So just being involved in SGA, being involved throwing more kegs. Like I'm really excited for kegs tomorrow. I'm excited just to be.
Actually, can you explain
What?
what KEGS is? I did not
Oh,
remember that in my formal
sorry.
presentation.
Kegs stands for keeping everyone at Georgetown social. Every Thursday, SGA and sometimes other clubs will co-host kegs, and it's just a time for us to be merry. There's some food, there's some drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, but it's really just 2 hours that we just say have a good time. Make those network, make those friends. Build that community. Every Thursday, so sometimes Wednesday, mostly Thursday though. So it's just a really good time. I'm really excited about just doing that one more time. The program is so short that I know I'm gonna look back and be like, man, I can't believe I didn't get to go to every single kegs, right? Like, so yeah.
Yeah, I was also thinking GBE, but I mean, and also I think piggybacking off of Bola's point, just like kind of taking advantage of all the different opportunities we get to hang out with this group of people. 2 years flies by, and this is, who knows the next time when we'll all be together as like a cohort or a class, than these years. So I think what I'm looking forward to is saying yes to more opportunities to just like hang out, and enjoy kind of the different experiences we have here. What else? Yeah, I mean, there's so many fun things. I can't think of a specific one besides GB. But I've heard, awesome things from previous second years and graduates about that. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I too was gonna say GB. I also will add that there's also tracks. So there's a fall track. I think Delaney, I saw you were going. We're going. There's an Egypt track. There's a Morocco track this fall. So those are exciting. I think too, just uh, like some of the things that I've been working over the summer for the clubs. For example, I'm part of the volunteer club, so I'm excited to see some of those events come through to fruition. And then, like I said, Michael and I are both on the consulting club, so we're excited to kind of pass on our knowledge to the first years this year and kind of get that into the groove of things. So I'll add something that's not traveling, but yes, excited for all those things.
I know none of us said anything class related. I am actually really excited about ethics, the ethics project. I'm genuinely excited for that to be able to just like go out into the world and do good is actually a really cool idea, and just working with a team to put that on sounds exciting. So yeah.
Yes, well, travel is absolutely such a foundational part of not only the Georgetown MBA, but the MBA in general. But to round out this conversation and make sure it's balanced on academics, have there been like any particular professors that have been absolute rock stars that you have found so beneficial in getting to know, or is there a particular class outside of the ethics project that you're excited to also to share about?
Yeah, I can kick this off. My favorite class so far has been leadership communications. This is a core class that we take as first years. And it's an intensive class, and you meet with small groups, and you basically practice your public speaking and different conflict resolution opportunities, and there are simulations with different cases, but really gives you the confidence to kind of have more professional conversations in certain settings. And it all culminates with something called the Executive Challenge, where Georgetown alum, MBA alum come and you basically do a case simulation with them as the opposite side to you. It's a phenomenal class. It's taught by an incredible professor, Professor Evelyn Williams. Because of her, I'm taking one of her classes this fall called Design Thinking and Service Consulting, I believe. So really excited about that. I have no idea what to expect with it, but I'm just excited to learn from her because she's incredible. And yeah, that's the standout that I can think of right off the top of my head.
I took a class last mod called Consumer Behavior, and for me that was really interesting. I have a background, my undergrad degree was in psychology and biology, so for me it was like understanding like the consumer perspective of psychology. Like it was interesting to have it framed that way. It was with Professor Alice Moon, and we did a lot of like fun little experiments in the class. Like she had us taste test if we can tell the difference, like if we truly knew brands, like between Coke versus Pepsi versus generic. I'm proud to say I did know the difference between the brands, but like a lot of people were surprised about like they didn't know the difference, and more so it's their perception of the brands rather than actually like how if they actually like the brand. So that was a really interesting class for me.
I would say that I also love lead comms, but another one of my favorite classes was understanding entrepreneurship with Jeff Reed. He is the director of the Entrepreneurship Center here at Georgetown. So it was a really interesting class because he brought in a bunch of entrepreneurs, some venture capitalists, just a lot of people that have been successful. But he also brought in people who had not been as successful and they still found their route to success. And that class was just really amazing as someone that has their own business, hearing all these perspectives from people that are, further down the line, letting you know that it's going to be a tough ride, but, it's worth it. Was really, really insightful. And I'm so glad to have taken that class and just met the people that he brought to class. They're all super interesting.
For me, Lit Coms is definitely the favorite class I've taken so far, but a close second to that was a class called Environmentally Sustainable Operating and Business Models with Professor Vishal Agrawal. It was a really exciting class, just helped me think about business in a different light. And we did one really interesting case about on Patagonia, and just showed me how it's possible for you to like focus on doing business that's profitable and that returns value to shareholders, but also does good in the world, or at least tries to not do harm to the world. Like if you're not gonna live it better, then don't live it worse. And we did like this really interesting simulation at the beginning of the class, which was like a fishing experiment where we like went out into the sea to like fish. This was simulated, by the way. And we all kept like fishing and like until we like fished out like pretty much every living thing in the sea and there was nothing left. And we all kept doing it without realizing that we were hurting the environment and we were so hyper focused on profit and making returns because of course we're MBA students. But that was like a really important lesson to learn in that first session about how to think about finding the right balance so that we live a planet that's habitable for, the coming generations.
Wow, Michael, that's so cool. I haven't heard of that before. So interesting. I learned something new tonight too. The next question is actually coming from Avis. What do you all wish more applicants understood about the McDonough's MBA program?
I think one of the things I can one of the things
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like you're all thinking, or I could also add, what surprised you the most when you started?
I think for me, I was going to go to the actual application. I was just thinking back on it for a second, but what was interesting about the McDonough application was like that was a couple of programs have it, but they had this like video interview, and I thought that was a really cool way to kind of differentiate itself because it wasn't just like words on paper. Like you had an opportunity to kind of a little bit, I know it's only a minute, but showcase kind of your personality. And I think too, on the admission side, now that I've gotten to see more of the admission side being a student ambassador, like it is really nice to see like a face to the name and get to see a little bit like of how someone thinks about the world and all that. So that was something that I really liked about the application. I know a lot of people are like, oh, we have to do a video, but I think for me, I kind of enjoyed that because it was something different, rather than kind of just writing an essay.
Um, the question is, what do you think that students are most surprised about when they come to McDonough? I would say the one thing that surprised me was how busy I was. It was busy of my own doing, of course, but there's a lot of opportunities that you get to do here on your MBA, and no one's gonna be like, "No, that's too much. You need to stop." They were like, "If you signed up for it, you can do it." So I definitely, I wouldn't say I didn't expect to be as busy as I was. Like I was more busy than when I was working like a full-time job. But it was more satisfying because again, it was of my own doing. So all of those things I was super excited to do. So that passion helps a lot, but it can be a little tiring. So definitely take care of your physical, mental, all that helps. So I would say that was surprising. I thought it was gonna be when I was in your shoes, I was like, oh, business school's a party, right? Like, like heading to the bar every day, and doing all those things. And then I was like, I don't even have time to go to the bar. I have stuff to do. So that was surprising for me.
I think what was most surprising for me was how strong the alumni community here is and how willing to support they are. I've had the good fortune to be able to connect with a lot of Georgetown alumni, especially at the firm where I spent my summer internship. It's like from, the moment I knew that I was going to go there for my summer internship, I had alumni, like from the moment like I even got the interview with the firm, it's like I had like alumni that were volunteering their time to help me like case and like prepare for the interview. It's like after I got in, it's like they took me out to dinner and like, it was really surprising to see them like really engage. And while I was at the firm over the summer for the internship, it's like all of the Georgetown folks at the firms, like tens of them like pulled together. And there was just three interns, like three of us from Georgetown who spent our summer there. And they like really made a point to connect with us and like provide themselves as like resources for us to leverage while we were there at the firm if we had questions and things like that. And that really I really felt that Hoya spirit and the power of the Georgetown Alumni Network, like outside of this university environment and in the real world, and that was quite surprising in a really good way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
Do you have
sorry,
anything else?
I'll just add, yeah, I would agree with Full. I mean, I agree with all of these, but the thing that Full said was really surprising to me. There's a lot to do and there's a lot of ways to get involved, and I found it very hard to say no because it's a fun place to get involved and build community. It was like the first time where I think I spread myself too thin to the point where I was like, okay, I need to take a step back this upcoming year so I can enjoy myself. I still had fun and I enjoyed it, but there's so many ways to get involved and meet new people and give back to this community.
Again, I'm always so impressed with how you all are surviving, eating, thriving, and continue to find just really great new ways to get involved within McDonough, but then obviously the larger Georgetown network. I want to say thank you so much for joining this evening. I can't believe 30 minutes goes by so quickly because you guys are all super interesting, and I always really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. One in a formal capacity, but then obviously see you all in the hallway. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. With that, I just want to say thank you to our current students. You're more than welcome to pop off. I'm going to hang back here with the prospective students and answer a few more questions and share the application fee reduction details.
Best of luck with everything, everybody. Good
Thanks,
luck.
Madison. Good
Thanks,
luck,
Madison.
everyone.
Good luck, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.
Hey everyone. Okay, so I know we're coming up on time. I really appreciate your patience and all those thoughtful questions you've asked. I recognize that it's been a long hour and a half-ish, and you've been such a great audience. So I'm going to share my screen. While I get that going, if you have any more final questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A chat. I will get through. I have a few minutes that I can work through some questions. And this is, so if you are looking for this application fee reduction code, I'm going to ask you to pull up this QR code and use this QR code to complete the survey. At the end of the survey, you're going to receive your reduction code. So save that, take a screenshot of it, drop it somewhere safe. When you sit down to actually apply for your application, we only accept one application code at a time, and only one will apply. So say you are applying and you also identified yourself as a veteran, your veteran code will actually override this application fee reduction code. You can also use this for the entirety of this application cycle. Yeah. This code does not apply to consortium. If you're a consortium, follow their guidelines. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it up there for a little bit longer. Any more questions in the chat? I feel like I've dropped you all some really great resources to connect with some other of our current student ambassadors. You can also connect with the 4 student ambassadors that joined us this evening on that Unibuddy link. Feel free to give them a chat when if you want to have more questions addressed. You can also toggle over on the top of that navigation on the Unibuddy link and find my profile and any of our other admissions advisor profiles, and we're happy to get you connected or chat with you about the application process itself. I wish you the best of luck. Oh my gosh, 2 weeks is our first application deadline. I can't believe that. I hope you all take advantage of, if you're based in the United States, the long weekend up ahead. I can't believe it's an unofficial end to the summer, but we're excited for a great fall. Okay. I'm gonna end it there and see you all next time or at a different event. Okay, take care, everyone. See you.